And welcome to the FTN Network Shots and Tanier NFL podcast for January 4th, 2024. We have made it to the future, ladies and gentlemen. 2024 is here, and for a lot of people, that means an election year, but for us, it means NFL playoffs. And the most important thing, the last week of the NFL season, so we can set up the playoffs. I am Aaron Schatz of the FTN Network. You find my work, of course, at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. He is Mike Tanier of The Messenger, and you find his work at themessenger.com. And if you want to know all about his Sunday eating habits, you want to check up his new mailbag that went up today at themessenger.com in the sports section and find out just what keeps this man going through a football Sunday as he writes a big walkthrough article.
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed about how
which my tolerance is so low that there's no way I could imbibe a beer on a work day, but good for you.
It's medicinal. It keeps me from trying to, you know how it is. It's like the first quarter. I got to write about something. Jalen Reagor, kickoff return, touchdown. I better write that up. He's calm down a little bit. Have a drink.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you're watching us live, which we do at 11 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, you can make comments and ask questions, and we'd like to hear your thoughts about the last week of the season. We're going to preview some games, and we're going to start Saturday with the 4:30 game, which is a hard one to preview. I mean, listen, this whole Week 18 is a little hard to preview in a lot of places because from the sounds of it, we now have 5 teams that are going to be sitting starters.
Yeah.
Baltimore, San Francisco, Cleveland, Kansas City, and the Los Angeles Rams, who have decided they do not care if they are the 6th seed or the 7th seed. That being said, there is a history of teams sitting starters in the final week or having nothing to play for in the final week and kicking teams out of the playoffs.
Right.
It happened 4 years ago. When the Baltimore Ravens started Robert Griffin III against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pittsburgh needed a win and a complicated series of things to happen in order to make the playoffs, but they didn't even get their win, and it wasn't even close. The Baltimore backups beat Pittsburgh 28-10. In case you can't tell, the first game we're going to talk about is the 9-7 Steelers at the 13-3 Ravens, 4:30 on Saturday. And part of it is that these guys play to win. Players play to win, and backups play to win too, and coaches play to win. And also, you can only make 7 guys inactive.
That's a good point.
Right? So, like, there's three or four players who you can sit and who can be active and not play. But after that, everyone's got to play.
Right.
So some of your starters have to play. By the way, C-Matt Gold says he's not seeing player props on platforms outside of Saturday's games. Yeah, they're very late on putting up player props this week, and this is why. Right. This is why, because a lot of these games, they're not sure who's playing. So they don't know. Like, I wanted to look for a Harrison Bryant player prop because Cincinnati is so bad against tight ends. And my guess is they'll sit Njoku and play Harrison Bryant. Well, there's no player props for the Bengals-Browns game because they don't know who's playing for the Browns.
Right.
So, yeah, there's not a lot of player props right now, and I don't know how much to help you. I've seen a few for the Cowboys, Commanders game, but other than that, I haven't. When everybody plays, even when everybody plays, the Ravens are only 11th against wide receiver 1, and George Pickens was 6 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown in the first game between these teams. The first game between these teams was a 17-10 Steelers win. That was the game where the Ravens were nobody could catch the ball.
Yeah, that was, and I think the Ravens outplayed the Steelers in that game. But literally, there were depending on who was counting, there were between 8 and 75 drops in that game. But to your point, Pickens in the last couple of weeks, this is a different Pittsburgh Steelers offense than that travesty that we watched for much of the season right now. So we're seeing Mason Rudolph in there. We see the team responding to Mason Rudolph. There's been some drama about Kenny Pickett on the backside of that. So the Ravens backups, whatever, can't expect as easy a time as they might have had 6 weeks ago against this team.
I'll note one more note on the whole, who's trying. question. There's been some discussion that the best course of action for the Ravens is to lose this game on purpose with the hope that bank shot Miami wins on Sunday night and Jacksonville wins. And then if Pittsburgh wins also, they get rid of the Bills, who most people feel are the biggest impediment to the Ravens making it to the Super Bowl. Why explaining this to
Tyler Huntley? Try explaining this to Tyler Huntley. Try explaining this to whoever's playing left tackle in place of Ronnie Staley.
Yeah, and the wide receivers who are going to have, like, let's say they sit Beckham. They'll still have to play Rashad Bateman. They'll still have to play Nelson Aguilar. And these guys, try explaining to them, well, we don't think you're necessarily good enough to beat Buff. First of all, their opinion is F Buffalo. Right. We're the best team. Yeah. And second of all, their opinion is screw the Steelers. We want to win. So, like, I realize that we can talk all we want about game theory, but these players aren't game theorying this thing to try to kick Buffalo out of the playoffs. They are trying.
Just keep feeding Aguilar. You'll be fine. You'll get the receivers you need.
I did look up a couple of stat things. Levi Wallace is the Steelers' cornerback to target, but he's gotten better in recent weeks.
Okay.
The Steelers are much better when they blitz, which might be interesting against a backup quarterback.
Right.
And the Ravens are a better defense when they're in nickel, so the Steelers are going to want to play more base personnel with Connor Hayward.
Not just base personnel, but something we've seen from the Steelers in the last couple of weeks, 3 tight end looks.
I love me some 3 tight end looks. That comes from playing so much Madden with the old Patriots playbook from the Gronk years where they had tons of 3 tight end with play action. Oh, I love it so much.
Right. And they're getting success out of it. Part of it is everyone's healthy. Freiermuth, Hayward, and Washington, the rookie, are healthy. And you really saw it against Seattle where you create this gap problem. We have so many gaps to fill with these guys that the run defense struggles, and that's where you get Warren and Harris running for big yards. Kind of the same thing the last couple of weeks. And yes, you can take play action shots over the top with that. 2 Pickens, you can get Freiermuth out, up the seam, etc. And they've had a lot of success for that in Pittsburgh.
You'll have to excuse me if I get some of these playoff situations wrong. Right. I believe the Steelers are in with a win and either Miami beating Buffalo or Tennessee beating Jacksonville.
I think that's
and they're in with a loss if Buffalo and Jacksonville both lose and Denver beats the Raiders.
Denver beats the Raiders?
There's a situation where Pittsburgh and Jacksonville could both lose, and which one of them makes the playoffs could come down to the Denver Raiders game because of strength of schedule and strength of victory, I think it is. And by the way, neither the Broncos nor the Raiders care about whether Jacksonville or Pittsburgh makes the playoffs, which is kind of hilarious.
Does that require a Colts-Texans tie too? I think
No, I don't think that requires. I think that's separate from a Colts-Texans tie.
Colts-Texans tie, which I think I'm just rooting for as a matter of principle.
The line in this game is Steelers -4, and I think if you've listened to me talk, you know where I'm going with this, which is I don't know how much I can penalize the Ravens in our formula to make Steelers -4 a good pick.
Yeah, right.
The Ravens are so far ahead right now in DVOA that even if you penalize them 45% and make them an average team instead of one of the best teams of all time.
Okay.
They're still the projected line on this game is something like Steelers by 1.
Huh.
So I feel like Baltimore +4 or 3.5, depending on which book you're looking at, is a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I don't hate them when you're getting points. I think that the Steelers are a better team now than they were 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. I think DVOA has a lot of slop, particularly on offense, from weeks past, even the Trubisky weeks.
They're 11th in DVOA. DVOA likes the Steelers. It's just
offense.
My God, the Ravens! Oh my God! And the game is in Baltimore. The game is in Baltimore.
Game is in Baltimore. That does help. I'm going to stick with the Steelers. This is Tomlin in a must-win game with an upgraded offense. A lot of guys playing their guts out, who have been playing their guts out for 2 or 3 weeks. I feel like they're going to get this win.
All right, Saturday night. This is the first prime time, the first non-1 p.m. Sunday game for the Texans all year.
Wow.
They did not appear in a single 4 p.m. game or Thursday or anything.
Right.
Texans 9-7 at Colts 9-7.
Okay.
A rematch of a 31-20 Colts win from week 2.
The
winner is in.
Yes.
The loser has either a 17% chance if it's the Texans or an 8.5% chance if it's the Colts. And we're not even going to talk about what happens if this thing ends in a tie. That just complicates things to a ridiculous extent. The Texans are 12th passing, but 30th rushing.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts defense is better against the pass than the run. You've heard me if I've talked about the Colts, if you've heard me talk about the Colts this year, it feels like the Colts are 18th in everything.
Yes.
I mean, it's not quite like that.
Right.
But it feels like the Colts are just slightly below average in every single way.
That seems about right. That feels about right. And you're going up against a Texans team that has a great advantage in their passing game and is healthier now than they've been 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, where the injury report, the biggest name on the injury report right now is Jonathan Greenard, who is a good ball. He's like their number 2 pass rusher to Will Anderson. Looks like he'll play. Laramie Tunsil, who was banged up, will play. Anderson, who is still on his way back, will play. And of course, CJ Stroud is fully back without his full complement of receivers, but with enough there.
Stroud is particularly good up the middle and deep.
Yes.
Now, the Colts are better in those areas of defense.
Okay.
But still meh. They're like 15th instead of 18th. Like, the Colts are so meh in every way. If we switch it around, the Texans defense is number 2 against the run, but number 23 against the pass.
Right. And
they'll want to go with Jonathan Taylor, but
Yeah.
it's more of a Minshew game. They're 27th against number 1 wide receivers. Pittman was 8 catches for 56 in the first meeting.
Right. And probably the strength of the Colts right now is their running game. I'm trying to pull up real quick Zach Moss's status. He's limited participation, so you might have both running backs in there for the Colts.
Yeah, there's a good argument about all-pro at left guard, but I heard from Brandon Thorne today to give me some advice on my all-pro picks, and he still goes Quentin Nelson at left guard.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of people like Tyler Smith from Dallas or Joe Tooney from Kansas City, but he's still with Nelson. So, Nelson drives that Colts running game.
He drives that Colts running game. And it's also very RPO heavy. So you may see a lot of situations where, to try and set up against the weakness of the Texans pass defense to, get to fake that handoff, get the ball out into the flats.
Those RPOs may also slow down the Texans blitz. Minshew goes from 18% DVOA without a blitz to -9 with a blitz.
Yeah.
Texans defense goes from +14 allowed with a blitz to -5.
Yeah.
+14 without a blitz to -5 with a blitz. And in the first game between these teams, which Minshew played half of because Richardson got hurt,
right,
the Texans blitz killed Minshew with just 3 yards per play allowed.
Yeah, they're definitely going to want to stay on schedule, the Colts, and get the quick game going to prevent that.
Both offenses are better if they stretch the opposing defense out to nickel.
Okay.
And special teams, watch for the Texans on kick returns, which there's not a lot of points on kick returns anymore, given the change in rules, but the Texans are one of the top couple of kick return teams, and the Colts are near the bottom of the league in kickoffs.
Interesting. I don't know who their returner is right now.
I don't remember the name of the return. I should have looked it up and written it down.
But Texans kicker Kayami Fairbairn. Sorry if I butchered that name.
No, but for fun, go to Wikipedia and look up his full name.
No.
It has like 50 letters in it.
Respectfully decline with these Polynesian names. But Fairbairn is back. He was out for several weeks. They were having a lot of kicker issues. He came back last week. I think he kicked a 53-yarder. So that's another little health advantage for the Texans that they haven't had in the last month or so.
The line is the game is in Indianapolis. The line is Texans -1.
Do it.
I just feel like the Texans are the better team. It's definitely, the Colts are not to sleep on. They're just kind of meh. But yeah. Andrew Daly points out the Colts are 30th in special teams DVOA, despite blocking 2 punts to win their game against the Titans. I will point out that's because punt blocks, the blocking team it's not included in DVOA, special teams DVOA, because that's a non-predictive play.
That's
so
probably impacting.
One of my projects, one of my possible off-season projects, is to create 2 versions of special teams DVOA, one of which includes all that non-predictive stuff.
Okay.
The blocks, the fakes, the onside kicks.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting how much that's worth, even if it's not predictive.
Right.
And Andrew Daly also points out that the Colts opened as the favorite in this game, and the line has moved significantly towards the Texans.
Yeah. That probably is public action. I don't think that's injury related. By the way, a little bit of embarrassment. The current kickoff returner for Houston Texans is one of my favorite players, Damian 3 Pitbulls Pierce.
It's so weird. He's like a power back. You don't think of him as a kick returner, right? But
right.
I also will point out I looked for a Mike Tanier special, which is some sort of first quarter or first half bet for a night game, but there was nothing. Sorry.
Darn it.
There was nothing good.
It's Saturday night. I'll be having more than one beer watching this one.
Let's talk about Sunday. Now, we're not going to go in depth into the NFC South because Mike doesn't like to deal with the NFC South. But the Buccaneers, if the Buccaneers beat the Panthers, they win the division.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the Saints-Falcons winner wins the division. Ugh. And you do not want the Falcons. I want the Falcons to win.
Okay.
For purposes of Patriots draft pick and a preseason over-under that I played.
Nice.
But most people, you do not want the Falcons to win. You do not want the Falcons in the playoffs. Saints are currently 15th in DVOA. Buccaneers are 16th, and Falcons are 28th.
Oh, my God. Dear Lord.
So you do not want the Falcons. You want the Buccaneers or the Saints to be in the playoffs.
Didn't you posted something this week about the Saints having one of the easiest schedules in history?
The Saints have one of the 12 easiest schedules in DVOA history. And the Bengals have one of the 6 hardest schedules in DVOA history.
Both of them scan. Scan. Wow. I'll feel comfortable if the Buccaneers just take care of their business against the Buccaneers, against the Panthers. Because when you look at the Buccaneers roster, say, how did these guys make the playoffs? Like, oh, they were all in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. They just lost Brady. Like, the idea that they're the team that makes it in.
Michael Allen Brewer wants to know if the Falcons are 28th, who's 29th? I'm trying to remember the bottom of the league. I believe it's the bottom of the league has Carolina. I think Washington, Arizona, Giants, Carolina is the bottom 4.
It's got to be I'm trying to look it up for you right now.
Carolina is definitely last, and the Giants are 31st.
By the way, hoo-ha, Bryce Young's DVOA and DER.
Yeah, is like one of the 5 or 6 worst rookie seasons ever. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm writing a column for ESPN. I did last year too, ranking the 32 rookie classes, and it brings up an interesting point about value, which is how valuable is it to have a starting quarterback who sucks? Like when you're ranking the rookie classes based on value, how much value do you give for a quarterback who essentially is worth negative value this year?
Right, but at the same time,
was a starter.
Was a starter, the most important job, and was out there. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of the Panthers rookies also, like Mingo has had a terrible year. Like the Panthers have had 2 really not good rookie classes in a row and have no first round pick this year.
I'd throw this drink at you, but I'm not David Tepper. Anyway, I'm actually doing a thing for the Messenger, the most cursed franchises entering next year.
Yeah, the Panthers are number 1, I think.
Right. They're the only cursed franchise who doesn't have like a 30-something-year-old quarterback who's making $66 gazillion and doesn't like the team anymore. So it's a really bad situation.
If we're not going to talk about the NFC South, we should talk about the AFC South. So let's talk about the 9-7 Jaguars at the 5-11 Titans, which is probably the best of the 1 p.m. games. Rematch of a game that the Jaguars won 34-14 in Week 11. The Jaguars will win the AFC South if they win this game. And with a loss, they would need the Ravens to beat Pittsburgh in order to get the 7th seed. The defense for the Jaguars has gone from 3rd in the first half of the season to 17th since Week 10.
Yeah.
But the offense for the Titans has gone from 21st in the first half of the season to 29th since week 10. So both the Jaguars defense and the Titans offense are on the way down. And the Jaguars can mostly give up on the run. They're 26th running the ball. And the Titans are 10th against the run, but 24th against the pass.
And all eyes in Jacksonville are on both Trevor Lawrence, who is working his way back at practice, and Christian Kirk, who I was trying to get an update on right now. I know he spoke to the media today. He talked about the details of his injury.
It sounds like he may play.
Huge
yeah,
difference.
He's big and important for the Jags. Also, the Titans are 31st against number 1 wide receivers. And in the first game, Calvin Ridley was 7 catches for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. They don't have anybody who can cover Ridley, but I think the Jaguars just do better. Nobody really works the middle of the field very well except Ingram and Kirk. When they took Kirk out of there, it got really, really wobbly.
Yeah. Here's another blitz stat. The Jaguars offense goes from 31% DVOA without a blitz to minus 14% with a blitz. So they struggle against the blitz, and the Titans defense is much better with a blitz.
Makes sense. They don't have a lot of personnel there in Tennessee. They need to generate pass rush that way. And the left side of the Jaguars line, I don't even know what the status is right now.
They have a good amount of sacks this year, the Titans, but I think that, like you said, they're generating it more. I mean, Landry's good.
Yeah, Landry's good.
Defensive tackles are good, but
Simmons has been in and out of the lineup. I don't see him on the injury report right now. Vrabel can scheme up pass rush.
Yeah. Kirk says, I think Andrew Daly's talking about Kirk here, that he's especially valuable given how awful the Jacksonville offensive line is.
Yes.
The Jaguars are 7-1, he points out in another comment, with starting tackle Cam Robinson. But I believe that they do not have Cam Robinson at this point.
He was not. I'll look that up real fast, though. They've been with Walker Little and another guy for a while. And they've also had trouble at guard. And that combination has turned into.
Because Little had to play guard for a little while when Robinson was in, and then Robinson went out, and Little had to switch to tackle. And their offensive line has not been good. In both conferences, the 5 will be favored over the 4 in the first round.
Yeah.
The Eagles and Browns, assuming it's the Eagles, the Eagles and Browns are going to be favored in the first round.
Yes. I'm sorry, as an Eagles supporter and an Eagles territory, you say the 5 and like the hands start shaking, but you're right.
I know. It was supposed to be the Giants was supposed to be the easy string that was supposed to put the Eagles into the 2 seed, and it didn't happen. The Jaguars are favored by 5.5, and the DVOA system officially makes this one a no pick. So if I put a gun to your head and made you pick, would you pick the Jaguars minus 5.5 or the Titans plus 5.5?
Vrabel sounds like he wants to go out there in the week 18 and have everybody slaughter everybody in their path. Looks like Tannehill should be getting a start over Levis. He's talking like I'm going out with a bang. I know their offensive line is a complete shambles. I know they've got problems on that side. I sense it. I sense sharks in the water here, and especially with
I'm with you.
Yeah,
Titans plus 5.5.
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
Biggest of the 4:30 games is the 7-9 Bears, the shockingly red hot 7-9 Bears, at the 8-8 Packers. This is a rematch of a game that the Packers won 38-20 back in week 1, where these teams look completely different now.
Yes.
Both Jordan Love maturing.
Yes.
And the Bears defense being phenomenal. The Bears are seventh in weighted DVOA, including 5th on defense. Fields has improved a little bit, but mostly it's their defense has dramatically improved.
2 major changes on defense in the last couple of weeks. One is Montez Sweat has been playing very well. Controversial trade acquisition. You do have him on a long-term contract. He has come in and made a difference. Tyreek Stevenson, cornerback,
has played much better in recent weeks.
Yeah, they were picking on him. A great talent, a great prospect coming out. He's turned it around in the last couple of weeks, and that has made a significant difference. They now have a very strong secondary in Chicago.
I talk a lot about cornerback stats being inconsistent and cornerback play being inconsistent from year to year. Like, even no matter whether you use charting or Pro Football Focus grades or just anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
cornerback is the most inconsistent position. I looked at my little cornerback DVOA from first half of the year to the second half of the year, and it's amazingly inconsistent, like even within a year. And Tyreek Stevenson is a good example, where Tyreek Stevenson was like the worst corner in the league for the first half of the season and has been above average in the second half of the season.
At least you can feel comfortable when you see the rookie corner having those struggles. And if they start to go away.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense than Adoree Jackson is the worst corner in the first half of the season and then is suddenly good in the second half of the season. Jalen Johnson, by the way, is good in both halves. He's all pro possibility, of course.
Right. But there's a difference between the guys like, well, he's good and they're avoiding him. Which is a lot of time was the AJ Terrell thing, although he's still good. But like they can just avoid him, and now it's more like he is getting targeted, and he's still demonstrating that.
The Bears' defense is better when it blitzes, and I've talked a lot about Jordan Love being better without a blitz. But here's why: I broke it down by the half of the season. It's not that Jordan Love has gotten worse against the blitz.
Okay,
it's that he's gotten so much better without a blitz.
Interesting.
Since week 9. Without a blitz, 63% passing DVOA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's Jordan Love in the last few weeks without a blitz.
Okay.
Which is sort of interesting. Packers defense is better when they don't blitz, which makes sense because you try to leave those cornerbacks on an island. Good freaking luck. Iceman says, I keep hearing the Bears are thinking about keeping Fields, and that's insane to me. How many years do we give him to become at least a replacement level passer?
What I anticipate is they're going to sit and wait for like a blowaway offer. They're going to wait and see if Sean Payton picks up the phone and gives them crazy stuff for Fields or possibly for the first round pick, and they're going to work that way. It's tricky because Fields has looked better, and the sheer talent you see. This isn't some guys like, well, look at the tools. I mean, look at the tools.
Right, the splash play. See, the problem Fields has a problem with people like me,
right?
Because for normal people, what you remember are highlights and splash plays.
Yes.
For statistical analysis, what you remember is everything else.
Yes.
Right? You remember all the middling failures.
Right.
And Fields' failures, unless it's a pick, Fields' failures don't look anywhere near as bad as his successes look good.
Right.
So in your mind, you're thinking this guy's awesome. But the fact is he's going to be only the 5th quarterback to put up negative passing value for 3 straight years with at least 200 pass attempts in each year. Right. The others were Couch, Darnold. Why am I forgetting? Couch, Darnold, somebody I'm forgetting, and Jeff George.
Oh, gosh.
And Jeff George did turn it around and have a career after that.
Yes.
Right? He's the rare guy who sucked really badly for 3 years and then did turn it around and have a career. And someone said to me, Justin Fields with better wheels and not a jerk is kind of a good comp for.
Yeah, that's the thing. Jeff George had unbelievable passing capability, like the best any of us have ever seen who remember.
Right. And if Jeff George was not such a
POS.
and had better scrambling ability, he'd be Justin Fields. But to me, the big thing about Fields is the money.
Yeah.
Is that, even if Fields develops, he's unlikely to develop into a top 10 guy. And in 2 years, you're going to have to pay him big money. Whereas Caleb Williams or Drake May is cheap for 5 years.
I can see putting the 5th-year option on Fields and just running the clock longer. Again, when you can say, well, we can throw Marvin Harrison out there, et cetera, et cetera. But I think in the short term, the messaging the Bears is doing makes sense. We are happy with this guy. We are excited. We love his development. That's the proper messaging if you want somebody to pick the phone up and call. The improper messaging is, we're benching you because you're guaranteed contract. I don't like the way it's done there. We're putting Jarrett Stidham out there. So the Bears are doing something right here.
The line is Packers -3.
I'm worried about this because the Packers injury report is very much a mixed bag. I know fantasy people are excited because Christian Watson's back, et cetera, et cetera. Preston Smith's on the injury report. This is one of your better pass rushers. Elgton Jenkins is on the injury report on the offensive line. That's a real problem. The Packers were terrible when Jenkins wasn't out there. I am leaning towards the Bears in this game. Part of it's the injury report. Part of it's the mojo of the Packers late in the season playing a scrambling quarterback.
I can hear Aaron Nagler in my head saying,
no. Okay.
The Packers own the Bears, own the Bears, own the Bears, own the Bears. But I think I'm kind of with you. I think I'm kind of on Bears +3 if I have to pick this game.
Right. That's where I'm leaning on this. The Bears are a better team now, and the Packers are more banged up than I think the injury report reflects.
All right, let's go to the last game of the season. I've got my little Josh Allen here.
Oh, he
is all ready for 10-6 Bills at the 11-5 Dolphins. Rematch, the Bills won 48-20 back in week 4.
Yeah.
Of the 5 best games of the year by DVOA, 4 of them are Baltimore Ravens games.
Okay.
And the 5th is this Bills game against the Dolphins.
Wow. No Niners.
Niners have the 6th best game of the year.
6th through 21st. Yeah.
The winner wins the AFC East, and depending on other teams, the Bills are I think out if they lose this game, and the Steelers win, the Jaguars win, and the Colts and Texans do not tie. So yeah, I mean, here we go, right? Like the Bills are 27th on defense against deep passes compared to 7th against short passes. And the Dolphins excel on deep passes to Tyreek, but the Bills are also very, very strong against passes in the middle of the field, which is also where the Dolphins like to throw the ball and excel. The Dolphins are also very good against middle passes, and Josh Allen had he has the worst DVOA in the league on passes up the middle.
Really?
But it has turned around since Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator. I had someone from Buffalo ask me about that. And as bad as Allen's DVOA is for the year, it's even worse for the first 10 games. And then it's turned around in the last 7. And the passes up the middle have very improved.
Yeah, I think we're seeing over and over again there that the coordinator change was the right move, whether it was a shakeup, whether it was different play calling, or whether they needed like Josh Allen to like wake up a little bit and say, yeah, I'm doing some things wrong on my
end. Both of these teams have improved a lot on defense in the second half of the year, right? Mm-hmm. The Bills were really good and then really bad. And then since week 10, they've been 6th.
Okay.
The Dolphins have been 9th since week 10. And they were something like 5th before the Baltimore game. That Baltimore game racked the numbers. So there's no Bradley Chubb now.
Yes.
And I believe Xavier Howard is out of this game.
I think so.
I do not know what the situation is with Jalen Waddle, whether he's going to be able to play or not.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that the injuries are a big part. Like, yes, I know that a lot of metrics, including DVOA at this point, have the Bills as a little bit better than Miami. But I think part of the reason why the Bills are favored by 3 in Miami is the injuries.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're talking about a defense, I believe that's 51 sacks this year. Like we lost track of how many sacks the Dolphins were piling up.
Right, but now there's no Jalen Phillips and there's no Bradley Chubb, so like they're gonna have to like use Emmanuel Ogbah, who's been a healthy scratch for most of the year. And
right, you have that going on one side, and then again you have in the secondary. Howard has not had this phenomenal year, but he's a very good number 2 to have out there. There's no depth behind him. A lot of the things that made the Dolphins this year, it doesn't seem they have at their disposal going into this game.
Yeah, you got to figure they're going to have Ramsey on Diggs.
Yeah.
Although even with Diggs not being as good this year as years past.
They don't like moving Ramsey, but they can. I think they would have to in this one. They've been usually just locking him down on one side. But at this point, I think you have to move him around because Diggs is the only real downfield threat.
You know, as the driver of the Bills bandwagon since the preseason, it feels weird to me that I feel like Miami has a better chance to win this.
Yeah.
Than people think they do.
If they were healthier, I'd be taking them going away. I would be taking them going away. This Bills team of the last couple of weeks, very quietly, has not been playing very well. They did not play all that well against New England. Zappy was just like, they did not play well against the Chargers or what's left of the Chargers. UCal Santa Barbara. And you can see the holes in them right now, especially their entire passing game right now does funnel through Diggs. Okay. So as strong as they are, I would not favor them in this game if I didn't look at the Dolphins and say that's just too depleted right now.
Yeah. I'm feeling Dolphins +3.
Ooh, okay.
But I'm especially feeling Dolphins +3 if Waddle plays.
Yes. Yeah. It's lights out otherwise.
If Waddle doesn't play, what I like is under 49.5.
Good. Yes. Yes, because that would be a situation where the Bills could look at this and sort of boat race it a little bit. Or it just becomes a defensive battle.
I mean, certainly I'm rooting for the Bills here because I like to be right. And it would be awesome for me to either have a Baltimore-San Francisco Super Bowl that makes DVOA look awesome.
Yeah.
Or a Buffalo-San Francisco Super Bowl, which is what I predicted in the preseason. And then Good Morning Football can replay my video and say, look how smart this guy is. So I'm rooting for the Bills. But I feel like the Dolphins have a better chance. I feel like the Dolphins have a better chance than people are giving them.
Maybe a better chance than people are giving them, but the line doesn't seem that far off. I'm rooting for the Dolphins. So I feel like the Bills should be punished for the way the first half of that season went. Like, I'm an Eagles fan. I'm crusty about the way the season's ending. I want them punished for the way their season began.
Yeah, except the funny thing is, I feel like if the Bills lose this game, there's a better chance than people think that they'll make the playoffs anyway.
That's true.
Because I think the Baltimore backups are going to play hard, and I think the Titans are going to play hard.
Right. And the Titans, for me, are the bigger one there. But yeah, you're right. The Baltimore backups are still very good, and anything can happen in that game.
Yeah. All right. That does it for our Week 18 preview. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us. Thank you, of course, to everybody who listened for the podcast. Make it your New Year's resolution to subscribe to our podcast, like it, and tell your friends about it. If you are listening after the fact, we are here Mondays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on YouTube for at least the next few weeks. Then it'll go to just Thursdays in the off season, probably. We will be back on Monday. We've skipped the last 2 Mondays because of holidays, but we will be back this coming Monday to talk about Black Monday and give a little bit of a preview of the playoffs as well.
Bye-bye, Belichick.
Bye-bye, Belichick, says Mike. See, I don't think so.
Ooh.
I think that they will hold out to try to get something for him. I don't think they'll just cut the bait. I think they're going to hold out to try to get something from like the Commanders or somebody.
That would be the team that would make the offer. So, okay. All right.
Yeah. Or the Panthers. I don't know.
You would laugh in their face.
All right. He's Mike Tanier, themessenger.com. I'm Aaron Schatz from ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. Once again, thank you all for watching, and we'll be back Monday morning at 11 a.m. Enjoy the last weekend of the season, everybody. We only get 18 weeks of a regular season, so enjoy the last one. So long.